Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the conversation with the tier, where we talk about life and how your mindset affects it all. Let's get to it. So, I want to bring in a guest today, y'all. She goes by the name of Leslie Ann. Leslie Ann, where you at, girl?
Hey, hi,
There you go.
everyone.
There you go. Hold on, we got to vibe out. We got to vibe out. Hold
Okay,
on.
do it.
Mm-mm.
And then
Yeah.
sexy lights in the background.
Sexy lights for a sexy lady.
Yeah. Thank you. Why, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. You are welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being on. I'm quarterbacking this thing, y'all. I'm trying to get everything together, make it look as good as I can make it look. Leslie Ann, you helping out the cause.
Yes, helping the cause. Want to be here.
All right. All right. So, y'all, today we are going to be talking about loyalty, boundaries, and childhood traumas.
Mm,
Now, Leslie Ann, I'm going to touch on childhood traumas a little bit on my end, but if you have the majority of the conversation on that, I'm gonna let you have that, wing that. But we're gonna do another like a part two, part three, part four, most likely to childhood traumas because that conversation about childhood traumas can go very deep.
oh, yeah, that's definitely going to have some parts to that for sure.
Yes, yes. So anybody who check out this live, so first of all, y'all, we was not expecting to do a live today. We was just going to do a pre-recorded video and we're just gonna upload it later. But she was being bougie. I'm gonna put it on you. I, oh, the camera doesn't look that good. No, it was
What?
me.
Oh,
Uh, it was
calling me
me.
out like that on the live. Oh,
I
no.
didn't. I didn't. Um, I didn't like how the camera looked. Like it looked very distorted. Hopefully, it looks clear now. I understood why hers looked distorted because she has an iPhone. She's an Apple girl. But mine, I wasn't. Sure.
You had
You
to
know,
point that
I
out, right? You had to point
I
that
be
out.
hating on her. I be hating on the
Maybe.
iPhone users. Apple users be giving us a hard time as Samsung and Android users. They give us a hard time.
I mean, we do because it's like, just come to the other side. Come to the other side.
It depends. Is it the dark side or what side is that?
And it's the side that you want it to be.
Mm. So y'all, I got my H2O in here. It's so small compared to. Oh
Look at
man,
that.
look at that! Look at that! I gotta get my game up.
I'm doing like free
That's
advertisement right now, but yeah, this is my water capsule.
was that 64 ounces?
This is 64 ounces, guys. 64 ounces. There's bigger.
This is like this is like 100. It's just it's like a secret type of magic cup. You know what I
What?
mean? So
That
yeah,
holds
so
100?
it actually holds 2 gallons. No, it doesn't. Look at you. It don't hold no 2 gallons, girl. You crazy. She
I'm
looking like
looking at
what?
you like,
I want one of
no.
those. Yeah, no, that ain't. That don't hold. She was looking, boy. You wanted one. You finna order one, huh? I
Yeah, I
got
was
them.
looking. I'm
I
like,
got them. Two
I don't
gallons. I got you.
know.
Okay. Anyway, so y'all, loyalty, boundaries, and childhood trauma. So let's start with loyalties. Is that good, Leslie Ann? Start with
That's good
loyalty.
with me. That's good. If you want to start that
Okay.
off.
Yes. So, oh, well, before that, at the bottom right there, we have the handles. We have my handle for Instagram. That's what IG is for. Instagram underscore the tier Walter. And then what is your IG?
My IG is underscore miss underscore Padeo. Don't ask me how to spell it right now, but Padayao. Okay. 1812 is my
Mm.
my handle.
Do I got it right up there?
I believe so. I can't even
Oh, you
see it
can't
right
see
now. I'll
it?
be
Oh,
honest.
okay. Okay. I hope I got it right. But y'all go follow Miss Leslie Ann over there at the IG world. So, loyalty.
Mm.
So loyalty right here, this can be talked about when it comes to anything, right? It's not only relationships, it's family, it's friends, it's business, it's a work environment. You know, the
Mm,
people who you're around, you know, but I wanted to start talking about loyalty when it comes to relationships.
okay.
Okay. So let me know how this looks once I do this. Everything still good?
Yes.
Okay. So loyalty, I think it's very important for a person to understand like what loyalty is, because a lot of times a person will talk about loyalty, but they don't really understand what it entails. So I'm very big when it comes to defining our terms, like what something is. Socrates, let us define our terms to make sure we're on the same page. So it doesn't matter what you might feel like that loyalty is. It's what whoever you are talking to or dealing with, and this is talking about relationships. How do you see the word loyalty and how do they see it, right? So when you look up
Mhm,
the word loyalty, the first thing that pops up is loyalty, right? Then it's honesty, it's commitment, it's allegiance, and it's devotion.
mhm,
I think these things is very important when it comes to talking about loyalty, because a lot of times everyone doesn't understand like what it means to be loyal, right?
mhm,
And that goes with honesty, right? Honesty is one of those things. So it's like if we're dealing with each other and you're lying to me, right? But it's like, oh, you didn't tell me something because I didn't ask you. And you would think that it's no longer lying
mhm,
because I didn't ask. But that's being dishonest, the opposite of being honest. So
mhm,
that falls underneath loyalty. How do you look at that?
mhm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, omission is a form of dishonesty, right?
Hmm.
So, with loyalty, all of those other terms that you just mentioned, honesty, that all ties in to someone being loyal. And how you said doesn't necessarily have to mean in a relationship or intimate. It can be outside of that. It can be, as far as, family, work relationships, uh, things of that nature. But you definitely have to, like you said, depending on who you're dealing with, or in that relationship, you have to define the terms of what you both feel or think the meaning of loyalty is, because for someone else it might not necessarily mean the same to them as to what it means to you.
Correct. Yeah, so for me too, about like in relationships, right? It's the practice of things. I found it to be that first thing you have to work on yourself before getting involved with anyone else. And I feel like for you to have the level of commitment to someone and loyalty to someone, you have to have worked on yourself, for X amount of time, to build yourself, because it's all about practice, right? And when you're in a single world, and you're not used to being with someone also, it's the fact that what type of habits, principles, morals, and values have you been practicing while you've been single? Do you feel like that is a factor when it comes to dating someone when you're used to your freedom, right? You're used to doing whatever you're doing. Ladies, gentlemen, there's no judgment over here from me. Okay. So you might have had a person who you was dealing with, but multiple people, depending on who you are, you know, even as a single, if you wasn't, you was traveling when you wanted to. There was no one to consult or, speak to, so to speak. Not ask for permission, but someone to consider when it comes to doing things. Do you feel like that is a different transition when it comes to you trying to be with someone when you've been single for a while, when it comes
Oh
to
yeah,
even
that's a completely different transition,
okay.
because you've been doing things for you for so long as a single person. Now, you mentioned something about, working on yourself before you can, be in a relationship with someone else and bring that into there. The first thing you really got to have is self-awareness before you can even, because if you don't have self-awareness, then you can't work on anything. If you don't even know what it is that you need to work on, even as a single person, there's always some things that we can do better, and always things in our life that we can try to, fix, and then look back and say what it is, how you just said with habits, what habits we need to break, what habits we need to form before you put that, but before you pour that into someone else or in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, transition, heck yeah, that's a big transition. Me personally, I mean, I can say that for myself. I was married for about 14 years, been together with someone for 18 years, or altogether 18 years, that long. And
Wow.
it was definitely a transition to go from, being married, fully committed, I'm, loyal to that person, and then to all of a sudden try to develop myself as a single person and starting pretty much all over again. And then now, having been single, now I have had relationships since then, two serious ones after that. But um, even being single in that time, now that I formed some habits, some new habits, and new way of thinking, which by the way I'm still learning. It is. I think often to myself, if I were to be in a relationship again and commit myself again to someone, how would that transition be for me? Because I've been doing this on my own now for some time. And, you know, that's a big deal. And like I said, that goes back to like self-awareness and what you're willing to do and
Mm-hmm.
bring to that relationship before you can get actually commit and be with somebody. But that's, again, that's my experience. That's where I'm currently at right now. But yeah, just to answer your question, that's a big transition. you know
So you currently single, is what you're saying.
I am currently single is what I'm
And
saying.
are you single and ready to mingle?
I am single and not ready to mingle.
Not ready to mingle? Oh man, I was gonna let everybody know where you at.
Yeah.
Go hit up Miss Leslie Ann.
Did you
Well,
hear that part about me still, learning, and uh I'm it's a learning process. I'm sure, I'm going to get there again eventually one day. I am not opposed to it. Like the doors are not closed. I love love. I love being loved. I love loving someone. I love the
mhm.
feeling. So yeah, I mean, it'll happen again one day, I'm sure.
Yeah, it takes time. Like I always tell people that an empty seat is better than having the wrong person sitting in it. You know, I'm
Yeah.
really big on that, and I'm really big on everyone that's your type is not your mate, right? So, like a beautiful woman, right, or in your case, a handsome guy, or whoever's your type, right? A person's for me, a woman's beauty will get my attention, but it will never give her a place in my life, right? But the thing about it is that I had to do the same thing you're talking about. I had to spend so much time trying to figure out who I was. I talk about the transition from a boy to a man with a lot of different people because a lot of times, as a man who grew up in a single parent household, you didn't learn the things you need to learn to be a man for someone else. But before you was trying to learn how to be something for someone else, you have to learn how to be something for yourself. And it was how to be a man for yourself. But what does that look like? What does it sound like? What do we, what's the habits? What's the principles? What's the morals? What are the values? Because a lot of times we're learning things on the fly from other people. We're trying to
Mhm.
connect to the streets. We're trying to look for some type of masculine energy for to be able to pour into us, to be able to help us to understand what it looks like to be a man for yourself, a man in this world, and then a man for your counterpart.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, so these things has been kind of difficult. So for me, I am single, right? Um, and I've done a lot of work um building myself, trying to understand what needs to be done away with, a part of my character, whatever it was. If it was anything with my mental, anything with my delivery, if I was being too harsh, whatever it may be. I'm gonna do a video about like carving, again, 'cause I did a video before was that like it's not only about what you're put on to yourself, it's
Mhm.
also about what you take, from yourself. things
Mhm.
that you might have that are bad habits and so forth. But anyway, so with loyalty and boundaries, let's transition over to the boundaries part, right? And I'm gonna let you take the lead on that as far as if you want to talk about boundaries in whatever area.
Well, I mean, everyone should have boundaries, right? uh, Boundaries in all aspects of life. You have boundaries for yourself for a reason. Boundaries is a way to protect you, to guard you, to also hold yourself to a higher standard or whatever that standard may be. uh, Boundaries are set because you are deserving of whatever that may be, whether it's love, respect, all of that. Boundaries have to be put in place. Now, that's not to say that, don't get that confused with boundaries and rules, because sometimes that can go lead to some other things that shouldn't even be. But for yourself personally, boundaries are important because it sets a tone, it sets a precedence as far as what you want in something, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's with friendships, even with family. Boundaries are even important in that area with family as well. Because it's pretty much saying, hey, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is what I know I
Hmm.
deserve, and this is I don't want that to be crossed. And other or we can communicate about this thing here, and maybe compromise, meet in the middle. But boundaries are important when it comes to loyalty specifically, and just touching on intimate relationships specifically, because well, let's communication is key. One, two, boundaries are set in relationships because if you are trying to be in a monogamous relationship with somebody, and you both
Hmm.
feel the same way, you're sharing the same goal in the relationship. If there are no boundaries that put in place between the two of you, then that pretty much subconsciously opens the door for other things to that possibly can happen and step over a boundary, or and that's where hurt comes in. Possibly that's where dishonesty may come in. um, Things like that. When it comes to an intimate relationship, I think boundaries are very important, and are needed, especially when you are trying to build with someone in that level.
But so this is what I think about when it comes to a lot of this stuff, right? Like when it comes to boundaries, a lot of times, because what it sound like to me, let me know if I'm wrong.
Hmm.
Because when you said communication is key, right? And I feel like that a lot of times, I heard some reverb. A lot of times, I feel like the understanding of what someone's saying is also hand in hand with being key to communicating, because sometimes you can communicate, but I learned through communication that sometimes not about what you say is what people hear. So sometimes I'm trying to articulate something to you, but yeah, you might hear it different or interpret it different, where it can be like an issue. But anyway, so when it comes to boundaries, I feel like that what you was touching on was more like a principle, right? A
Hmm.
ideology of if we are compatible with one another, because you have to be able to properly vet someone when you're trying to talk to them and see if they're even looking for the same thing.
Right.
You know, because a lot of times people be getting into what's the word? Entanglements, right? With
Hmm.
people, right? Because there is no clarity of what someone is looking for. Sometimes it's because someone is trying to hide what they're actually looking for because they want what they want and they feel like they have to be deceitful to get it. And
Hmm.
other times it's based off the fact that a person is articulating what they're looking for and want, and a person think, well, maybe I can change what they might be looking for and want. So but I think when it comes to the boundaries part is like, okay, it's figuring out, okay, this is what I'm willing to accept, this is what I want from someone, and if this person don't fit within my ideology, then what would you do from there? Like, you have to be able to cut that person off. You know what I mean? And like, and not move forward. But I would ask a person this question when you set up these boundaries. Whatever your boundary is and whatever you are trying to get out of this relationship, I feel like it's very important for a person to be able to reciprocate what they're looking for in their companion. A lot of times people are looking only on the other side, right? They're not looking at themselves to say, okay, this is my boundaries. This is what I'm looking for, which I feel like goes along with your principles, morals, values, and standards. But yeah, they don't reciprocate that back. What is your mindset on that?
So you're saying that they are expecting someone to respect their boundaries, as far as from the other person, but they're not looking at themselves. And is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I feel like whatever, because like when you mention boundaries, like what you're looking for, and I understand also boundaries is basically off like basically was like, okay, this is what I don't want to happen in the relationship. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, this is what like my requirements would be, whatever it is, right? So, but I feel like that a lot of times we only look at it from one side, like one point of view. We don't try to look at it from both sides of what am I looking for, like for whatever I'm looking for, do I offer that like in
Mm-hmm.
return? And basically,
Mm-hmm.
are you in a position to accept whatever that is from the other person coming to you? If that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I mean, with certain boundaries, I feel like there's some things that need to be communicated and articulated, almost, to the specifically down to what it is that you like you said, the requirements. But there are some
Mhm.
certain boundaries that people have for themselves that are like unspoken boundaries that you as a person, as a human being, should already have that instilled in you. So like respect for someone, just yeah, a mutual respect for that person. I mean, that's a boundary. You don't want to disrespect anybody. If there's something that is, if someone else is thinking, okay, well, I can do this, I'm gonna take a chance, and I think I heard it this way. Well, that's where the communication comes in. You have to discuss that. You have to say, up front, like, this is where I stand, this is my view of things. What are your view of things on this, whatever the particular subject is, whatever it is that you and your partner are dealing with at that time. But I think not all boundaries, I mean, even children, as children, you create a boundary. You're taught to, certain things. Don't let anyone, don't talk to any strangers, or don't let anyone do this to you, or don't let anyone do that to you. It's like you're taught this, or at least most people are taught this as you are a child. So there's some boundaries I feel that, don't even need to be said, depending on what your morals and your principles and your values and beliefs are. uh, but again, when it comes to relationships, like how you just said, someone might be thinking it or hearing it one way, and then the other person might be thinking, well, I said it this way and this is what I actually meant. um
Yeah, cause like when I hear boundaries, I really hear like principles, values and morals. It's basically like what you're living from. Like when you say a boundary, like what you don't allow someone to do, like you won't let somebody to treat you any type of way. You might mention respect, right? How
mhm.
someone verbalizes something to you, a person is considerate of who you are, how something might be coming off, right?
Yeah.
Because if I say something, it could be coming off harsh to you, but to me, I'm just being direct, right? And maybe based off of upbringing or environment situation. And I'm telling you, I'm a genuine person, so I'm not trying to come off as harsh, but I am being truthful and honest, and I'm being direct, So I see that as in like a character or like just a person's perspective,
Yeah, I
right?
was gonna say, is that necessarily a boundary or more so like how you just said, you know, a character or perspective?
Well, bro, the reason why I said it because somebody might feel like that the boundary is they done been in relationships before that was verbally abusive, right?
Mm,
So they could be in their mind, they could be articulating that in themselves as a boundary to where it's like, I will not let someone come into my life who's gonna choose to speak to me this way. So it's almost like a wall, like a boundary, you know what I mean? So
mhm.
that's why I say interpretation is like, okay, what do you mean by that? Because it seems like it goes back to um the principle of something like respect. A person has to respect me, and that could be a boundary.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, that ties into how you said what my beliefs are, my morals, my principles. I establish my boundaries from that. I also establish
Mhm.
my boundaries from childhood traumas, which we'll get into. Um,
Yeah.
but I also establish boundaries from experiences from past relationships. So that it's a mix of not only just your morals, your beliefs, your principles, but it's also of your experiences in the past, in
Mhm.
relationships that you've had, in your childhood upbringing. You create boundaries based on those things that have happened in your life, and you eventually get to a point where you're like, this is what I don't want in my life, this is what I would like to see in my life and what I would like to have in my life. I ultimately, though, that falls on you to communicate that to whoever that is. And if you want that to be, respected or recognized, you
Mhm.
need to make sure that people are aware of that, just as you are aware of your own boundaries and your own self-awareness. You have to make sure that the people around you in your circle and the people, whoever that is, or your partner, they know what those boundaries are as well.
So before we move on, um, I feel like it's very hard sometimes when speaking to people, right? Because sometimes it might not be a person's intent, right? So it's like, who are you around? Who are you speaking to? Who are you talking to? Because have you ever had a issue with someone doing something to you or speaking to you, and you took it away that it wasn't really meant?
Oh yeah.
So with that, when you start talking about boundaries, these things get very touchy because it's like, what if you're wrong in your interpretation of what you think is happening, but it's not really happening? Like, do it make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I guess I'm thinking more so I've I've done that where I've misinterpreted what someone has told me, or what someone has said to me. I've misinterpreted, but I've also responded. I've also responded to whatever that may have been,
Hmm.
and based on their response, let them know that I either clearly didn't understand, or I didn't, how they were trying to convey it to me. And
Uh-huh.
then from there, a conversation forms, and we go
Right.
from there.
Right. Yeah, because I feel like that too. Sometimes, like, everyone doesn't have the ability to kind of conversate the same way.
Right.
I've dated someone before, and they felt more comfortable writing things down versus actually having a verbal conversation. They couldn't get there because, like, it's not a judgment in a negative way, but they said their mind doesn't process things as quick. So they need time. So sometimes you ask a person a question and they would just sit there and you like, I just asked you a question, but they actually trying to process what you said and how to articulate it back to you. And that can be kind of long because you think, okay, 3, 4 minutes pass and they still trying
Mhm.
to, process everything. So, but anyway, so moving on from there, childhood traumas. Man, this is a touchy thing for a lot of people. And I don't feel like that a lot of people understand childhood traumas and how it correlates to your life as an adult. And I don't think a lot of people understand if they actually are dealing with childhood trauma.
That's good that you said that. I
Oh,
have,
thank you. Thank
from
you.
the reading from the reading that I've done on childhood traumas, because I can tell you, I have had some childhood traumas for sure. But the reading that I've gathered and from what I've learned in my experiences along the way is it's actually more often than not, people are not aware of
Mhm,
how their childhood traumas are affecting them in their life or family or relationships until
mhm,
it's either until it's much later in life, adolescent or
mhm,
adulthood, or it's too late. And then by that time that they realize it, they've already formed or have hurt and damaged relationships along the way. And I don't mean just intimate, it can be even with
mm,
just, family, friends. And,
yes.
you know, the biggest thing that I've read that has been consistent is that a lot of times a lot of people are not self-aware about it. They don't realize it, or they obviously know that they have some traumas because obviously they lived it, right? They've lived
Mhm,
whatever happened in their childhood, but they don't apply or they don't connect the dots and say, so because of this, unless they've gotten help, as when it right, when it's happened, or they've realized it, but they don't connect the dots and say, okay, so a part of how I'm handling this with my partner, or how I'm handling this with my family, or whomever that might be, ties into the traumas that they've 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 experienced in the past. And that is so huge, because if you're not aware of that, and you're not active, and you're not actively trying to try to seek some kind of, I don't know, whether it be therapy, or however you need to gauge that and heal,
mhm.
that really can be detrimental, especially if it's negative. It can be really detrimental to how you form healthy relationships down the road.
Yeah, because I feel like that I wasn't necessarily aware of, because like what you said, that when you go through something, right? I went through things, but I didn't correlate it in my mind to trauma.
Hmm.
It was just the way of life or how things are. So a lot of times a person did go through it, but maybe in their mind, they're not correlating that to childhood trauma, and
Right.
or this is the reason I am the way that I am. This is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And you
Exactly.
don't realize the burden that you are placing on someone else who chooses to deal with you, because you are a dope person, right?
Hmm.
Not in general, right? But then you can have that trauma in certain areas that make you be like have a certain personality towards, like you're saying, your loved one, your friends, your family, and it's toxic, but they're like, man, this person has 8 good things about them. But those 2 things right there is like, oh my goodness, like it's so detrimental to you building and forming
Hmm.
um trusting, loving relationships, because a person's like, man, this person is have an issue. And if a person is not aware on the outside, so say that you are the person who is not dealing with the trauma. I'm trying to articulate this right. So you're the person who's displaying like bad behavior as far as, childhood traumas, and I'm not aware that that's what that is. I can be judging you based off of
Hmm.
my lack of understanding of what's really going on. And I'm missing the whole point that, I can't be a person who helps you. I could actually be a person who makes it worse, because now I'm
Hmm.
I'm down on you. I'm talking down about, why you think like this, why you do that, why you
And
do that.
you might be adding to that trauma because
Yes,
you might be uh kind of like a reminder of what that trauma was, depending on how you're
triggers.
acting. So exactly, triggers. So you're triggering that for someone. So yeah, it's very important. I don't think that, as when we're younger, I don't really think that we think this we think this through, especially when we're young and we're dating and we're having fun. But it all comes down to, if there's ever a point that you recognize it in yourself, then that's where you say, what is it that I need to do to heal? Everyone has attachment styles, whether it's positive or negative. Everybody has an attachment style depending on their upbringing, depending on their surroundings, or what the experiences are growing up. Everyone has one. Now
Yeah.
it just depends on what your attachment style is, and what you attract, and what attracts you, and how you are actually able to heal from that, if it's negative, and or if it's positive, how you can encourage whoever else, or whoever that may be, that you choose as a partner, because everyone has one. You just don't know until they actually share that with you, what the depths of that are, and that is. And like you said before, some people can't even convey that, they can't even have that conversation. For
Right.
some people, they can't even go there and articulate that to someone, because this is just something that they've been so used to, or how you said, this is how I am, and
Right.
they've been this way for so long. They've been conditioned to feel this way. They've been conditioned to, that's their normal, you know.
Right.
But your attachment style definitely pours over into those relationships, whether it's your partner, with family, friendships. It definitely pours into any relationship that you try to form.
So do you think that, 'cause this is my mindset, but I'm thinking about it now. But do you think that if you know that someone is dealing with something like that, right? And you don't necessarily want to deal with a person who's still there. They haven't healed, they haven't worked on it, they haven't acknowledged it, they don't know what it is, or they have acknowledged it, but it's like, one thing that I know, right, is change happens slow or not at all.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we get into situations, relationships with people based off of the potential of who we think this
Mm,
person can be.
yeah.
So it's like, do you think that it's probably the best thing not to be like, okay, this person is just, bad, whatever it may be, but to protect yourself when you're
Mm-hmm.
vetting, it's like, hey, you know, to do what's best for you, right? You and this
Mm-hmm.
person is not compatible. This person is dealing with a lot. And it's like you have to know how to, because that's almost like setting a boundary for yourself, not
Yes.
allowing yourself to get into a situation or a relationship like that because you like, hey, because I've done it, right? I've
Mm-hmm.
had some beautiful women who were like great personalities, they fun to hang out with and so forth. But it was certain
Mm-hmm.
things about them, and it was just like I can't connect myself to that because I'm thinking about how hard it would be to try to grow with this person. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you add children into the mix, you know, what
Mm-hmm.
type of mother, and for a woman, what type of father will this person be when they're dealing with all these other type of issues that haven't been fixed or talked about and healed, and then
Mm-hmm.
they end up putting those same traumas on your children and inside of y'all relationship. Like
Yeah.
some people can say, well, that's kind of maybe heartless or inconsiderate, but I feel like a person has to
Now,
consider who you attach yourself to.
yeah, I mean, there's such a thing as, like, creating such type of soul ties. But I actually went through that, and not that long ago, and I had to let someone go because of that. because and like you said, and this person was a great person deep down inside. Never, stepped out of line with me as far as like, disrespect, cared. But he struggled with a lot of, things from his past that I would see overflow into our relationship. And
Yes.
I've tried to have discussions about it, but because he, was so conditioned to not, and to not deal with those things, that discussion, that conversation never really fully developed or unfold. We never really, got to the core of it. And it's unfortunate because it becomes draining on the other person.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes emotionally taxing, and it does takes a toll. And regardless of how I felt about this person, I had to eventually make a choice to myself and say, I can't fix you. I can't fix you. The only thing I could do was love you the best that I can. And if that's not enough, then at some point I had to say, I have to walk away, because for me, that's where the boundary comes in. Because then I will always be almost like it was almost like, we're teeter tottering back and forth. There was like a broken record with the same conversations that would happen every
Man.
time it would unfold. And that's not for me the relationship that I wanted or that I would like. And I felt bad because I felt like I was abandoning someone at a time where, because of abandonment issues that he had, that I was doing the same thing. But I have to protect myself as well. And you can't change a person. You can encourage someone, you can motivate somebody, you can love them till you're blue in the face. At the end of the day, change comes from within, and it has to come from that person wanting to be able to change and accept that they need to have some kind of healing.
Yeah. Symptoms of like not knowing. Like they say you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you don't really know because it's hard when you don't have people around you, certain people around you that can help you with this type of, thoughts and process of these thoughts because we're not around a lot of people a lot of times that are genuine. I had a show that I did about people's circles being small, right? And it was like because people didn't trust one another, but when it comes to your circle of friends and the people that you have around you, I feel like that a lot of people don't want to be held to a standard. People don't want to be held to have to be who they really are.
Yeah.
So another thing too, people don't want to hear the truth about themselves and about what they have going on. So we are not
That
really
is that
being
is
genuine.
that that's a good point you brought up, because that is something that I've read when it comes to avoidant attachments, or with childhood traumas, or any traumas, from the past, that block their ability to have healthy relationships, is what you just said, about, you know n- not being able to listen when it comes to hearing about themselves. some
Hmm.
some can't, some don't want to, they deflect, they don't want to, they would rather not, because that's a big thing for them. That is, for some, that is huge. That is really hard. It's a really hard pill to swallow. So
Right.
that means, when it's someone like that, and you're engaging in hopes of trying to be in a relationship with somebody like that, and it's not to say people like that are bad. That doesn't mean you have to stay away from these people. However, you do have to kind of proceed with caution, because if you're trying to build with somebody, you have to think, how am I going to build with someone who I can't even get past this wall with?
Man, it's hard. It's hard
Mhm.
because you want to build with that person
Right.
because you see the great things about them, but you also know that the other part is too hard to get through, around. And these
Hmm.
is not as simple as like you have your non-negotiables. Someone might, have one, two, three, and four. right? And it's
Yeah.
together. When I was talking about what you like about them, you like one, you like two, you like three, you like four. You don't really care about five, six, and seven, but they're not non-negotiables. But what
Right.
you're talking about is like this had nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with a negotiable. It has everything to do with how you see yourself, your mindset, your trauma, what you
Mhm.
can't get through. And to piggyback on what I was saying earlier about you don't know what you don't know, an uncle of mine sent me a video about self-sabotage, and I never heard about self-sabotage. And sometimes a person can be scared of moving forward with someone. You could be so great and have a lot of stuff going on, but they will sabotage the relationship. Some people unknowingly, but some people knowingly, because they are afraid of love. They are afraid of a deeper commitment. They are
Mhm.
afraid of certain things, and they end up pushing people away. And it's unfortunate because you still have to make a decision as a person if you're going to move forward with somebody or not, based off of your level
Right.
of intellect and understanding, because you don't know. Like sometimes red flags that you might look at as a red flag, you might ask the question, well, how red is this flag? Or you know, is it really a red flag? Because again, it goes back into interpretation or how
Mhm.
you might have understood something that someone was saying to you versus what it really is. So it can get
Right.
difficult. So I think it's very important for us to have like I reach out to people who are married and who's been married for X amount of, time. And I want to understand the mindset, because if that's what you want ultimately, you can't just be talking to single people and how the world is going. Because if you're in a single world right now, you know that it is crazy, in the single
Mhm.
world, trying to meet someone with the same intent of actually
Mhm.
building something with someone, because you have so many influences of social media, of ideologies of people thinking what something should be, and it's like a fairy
Yeah.
tale. It's not real. Like we go through life ups and downs. Relationships is not perfect,
Mhm.
but it's a lot of work that we should be working on when it comes to ourselves before we even connect. But
Yeah.
before going off on that, I want to touch on one thing on the traumas. Excuse me.
I just want to say really quick, going back to that relationship that I was in, you mentioned something about, being a trigger. So not only for me was that hard to, and emotionally taxing, but I know my traumas for him on that end would that was hard on him. You have two when you get two people that
Mm, that's a good
you
point.
know yeah, that you come together, you have each your own set of traumas or your attachment styles that are totally different.
Right.
You want to tug a war in that kind of relationship, you got one like immediately, and it's hard. And it's not to say that it's impossible, you can't navigate through that together. However, before you do that together, you have to do that for yourself first.
Right. And I feel like too that sometimes a person can say to you that, well, you got traumas too, but I haven't chose to point them out. So why you pointing mine out? Like, why are you jumping down
Mm-hmm.
my throat about what I have going on? You're making it like you're putting it in the forefront,
Right.
like so a person has to be mindful of that too, because sometimes a person might be saying, hey, I understand that a lot of people, if not everybody, deals with some type of form of trauma, but it's like you're pointing mine out is making it worse, versus allowing me to, because I think it's a different if a person is not trying in the process,
Mm-hmm.
versus somebody who's trying and you with them, trying to help that person out. But I think that you still have to make a decision ultimately for yourself if you want to choose to move forward with that person or not, based off of the level of like peace that you might not have in your
Right.
relationship. But I want to make this point about traumas because I feel like that a person needs to understand also is that just because you might feel like that that's not traumatizing to you, and that that's not extreme, or it's not, you know, trauma worthy to acknowledge, doesn't mean it is for that person. So I'm gonna give an example with anonymous type of, you know, my description of the person. So I knew a person, and this person um was told from their mother to clean their room, right? And um they went to go outside, and their mom said, once you clean your room, you know, it was her and her sisters, y'all can go outside. Well, like most kids, you know, they throwing stuff in the closet, throwing things underneath the bed and stuff like that, so they can go outside, you know, and have fun. The mom comes in there, sees the stuff underneath the bed, sees the stuff stuffed in the closet. She took all the clothes that was already hung up, took them down, you know, and then threw the shirt at the daughter, right? And said, now clean this whole room up the right way. Well, at 34 years old, that once little girl was still traumatized by a shirt being thrown at her, you know, and someone else can look at that and be like, how is that trauma? Like, how are you still holding on to that? But
Mm-hmm.
that's because that wouldn't have traumatized you. Now, someone
Mm-hmm.
else could have went through something that was more, you know, getting whooped with extension cords and hangers and stuff like that, and they don't correlate to that for being trauma. That was the way of life. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, in a certain community, it was like that's what happened. You go out there and get a switch. You know, I wish I would have got a shirt thrown at me versus getting, you know, what with a hanger, you
Right.
know. But just because yours seemed like it should be more traumatizing, you cannot look over someone else's trauma because you feel like, you know, it's not trauma
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. You don't want to be dismissive.
Right.
You definitely don't want to be dismissive. And I know even right now, just by us talking about it and having this conversation about it, it's easier for me to say it. But when you're in it, when you're actually in it or in the throes of the relationship, sometimes it is hard to see because there are things that just trigger, and then you kind of, you know, forget, or not forget, but all of that sometimes goes out the window, and then you do start um, you know, dismissing without wanting to the other person. You start dismissing what they've gone through, and or belittling it, or it's not that important, or I definitely am guilty of that personally. It's hard, this it's not easy, especially how you just said, when someone has to see this for themselves, or recognize this about themselves, or hear this about themselves. Nobody ever wants to hear, like, well, you need to work on this and that, or you need to heal from this and that. Like, it's
Right.
hard, and especially when you're in the depths of it, or you're trying to navigate in a relationship, still holding on to these things, or these traumas, or these conditions that you've been so used to for all of your life. It's hard. It's easier said than done.
Right.
And from what I've read, as far as healing, it really does take some therapy. And I know therapy is not like the end all be all of everything. It's not like the 100% problem solver. However, I was reading that that's pretty much a start.
Right.
Otherwise, how else how else would you heal, or move on from those things that you've been through in your past?
See, I want to mention this, like interject right there, because I feel like also for people who are friends of people, I feel like that it's very important for you guys to understand that how a person might be to you as a friend versus how they are as a companion is two different things. Sometimes people give people advice from a friendship point of view and a perspective, and you don't know how this person is to be with as a person, you know, that
Mhm.
you are with as a couple or a relationship. And also when a person be like, well, I think you're perfectly fine, I don't think that you should change. If you're with somebody, that person's opinion of that, especially if it's coming like that, is really null and void. You know what I mean? Because it's the fact that these two people have to figure out how to coexist with one another.
Right.
And if this person is having some type of issue or concern with you, then you can't be trying to go to someone who you think who would agree with you just because it feels good, because this is your friend and they saying, oh, you're perfectly fine, this person is tripping, you don't need to change, whatever. Like, your support system around you is very important to even having healthy relationships. Because if you, like my uncle always told me also, was that there's a difference between counsel and wise counsel. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're counseling with people, because even if it's like a real counselor or a therapist, a person needs to be able to know how to ask the right questions to figure out what's going on. Because typically a person is only hearing one side of the story. They're only hearing what this person is saying to you about something. And because they know you, they're kind of biased towards what you're saying versus trying to figure out, both sides. I just want to throw that in there because,
Right.
again, we have friends that care about us, but how I am as a friend to my friends, male or female, is not how I am with the person who I'm actually with. Same thing with family, cousins, uncles, whoever. Like, our relationship is what it is, but when it comes to being with someone, it's different. It's more
Mm-hmm.
intimate and so forth.
Right. I agree. I mean, you know, it's almost like, the um you can give, advice or counsel, how you said, or, share, your opinion with friends or, family. But when it comes to someone you're in a relationship, because you have formed a deeper intimacy or a level of, love and trust that you don't have with your friends, um
Hmm.
then it becomes a little bit more, a little bit more so, and what they feel might be better for someone else in their friend circle, they're not going to feel the same with or for their partner, whoever,
Right.
who that might be. But yeah, you're right. um and I wanted to also say, not everyone has childhood traumas. I understand that not everyone, has gone through, whatever their description or definition of traumas are, right?
Correct.
However, going back to that whole, everyone does have an attachment style. Even if you had the best upbringing, even if you've had, the most loving family, and you had more positive than negative growing up,
Right.
you meet that one person that is on a whole different spectrum than you, with, things that you have never been through, or have experienced.
Hmm.
You yourself, no matter what you do or how you want to try it, you will not be able to fix that person. You will not be able to, change that person, no matter how good of an upbringing or background that you may have,
Yes.
because you have an attachment style that's a positive one, and you're trying to, you might be trying to commingle that with someone who doesn't.
Mm,
And these are things that, we have to think about when we're forming relationships, or
man.
when we're, even with friends or even with our families. These are things that we have to think about. We have to, and I know, like I said earlier, when we're young or teens or even early 20s, and we're out there dating, or we're out there, having fun, we're not necessarily thinking of all this stuff, because at the time it's just
Right.
like, you know this is fun, this is
Right.
this is a good time, this is how it should be. But it does affect you later, and you're lucky if you have someone who has the patience and the understanding to, no matter what, and this is where loyalty comes in, who is going
Yeah.
to stick by you and say,
Devotion.
what, regardless of all of that, I'm going to love you still, and I'm going to continue to love you, and I'm going to continue to be by your side, and I'm going to continue to show you my loyalty. I'm going to continue to be here. that takes a hell of a person to do
It
that.
does. That's hard. That's hard because, you know, sometimes we don't consider also what that person who does that, who sticks by your side, how draining that could be for them
Hmm.
emotionally, mentally, spiritually, even physically, like that
Yeah.
becomes very draining because the person is really trying to help you. And a person is really hoping that you don't do them wrong and be ungrateful for their help,
Right.
because sometimes people form other bad traits when a person is being more soft with them and considerate. The reason why I say that I'm going to make this correlate is because sometimes when a person is used to dealing with someone who is more firm, right? More direct, but it's kind of like slightly harsh, or abrasive, so to speak. And then when a person gets from that person and gets to someone who is more mild tone, more even tone, more sweet and considerate, they try to
Hmm.
run over and step over a person like that. And the
Mm,
person's only really being that way because they're trying to be helpful to you and sympathetic towards you
right.
and loving. And if you're not careful, you can think someone is being weak when they actually are being, noble and considerate
Hmm.
of you, because what they might understand is that um it's like I'm trying to think of the quote. It was like a person is more likely to receive the message if they can receive the messenger. So a person is only changing the way that they are presenting something to you because they want to actually reach you. They don't want, you know, you to fall by the wayside because everyone gives up on you because you are this person. So a person has to be very grateful for people that's in their life who
Oh yeah.
actually trying to help them. But I feel like, when it comes to friendships, when it comes to companionship and so forth, it's so hard to find authentic, people, because we are around a lot of people in the world that are not authentic, that's only dealing with you based off of what they can get from you, what you
Mm,
can do from them. They only want to be, with you for the moment in this time. People want you to already, depending on who you are as a person, people want you to already be at a certain status, certain financial point. They want you to
mm,
have it all the way together. And it's just like life is hard. Life is not that easy. Like we go through things, we go through things from childhood into our adulthood. We talking about childhood trauma, but there's adult trauma. Like there's a lot
mhm.
of things that we go through period in life. So it's just like no one seems to want to build with one another to be committed to someone because you see where they are at now versus
Yeah.
where they could potentially be, but you don't want to put that work in, but you want to find somebody who's already put the work in before you, and you want to just jump on to that bandwagon like, oh, this person
Mhm.
already, have it. And a lot of times too, um the character part is missing. People are not, it doesn't seem like to me, right? I'm not gonna put people when I'm talking about everybody, I'm not generalizing, but a lot of times it feels like more times than not that a person is not really looking at character, right? When it comes to who a person is, it's more about the outer things that you have, and people try to show more reverence or respect to, what a person has obtained versus who a person is as a character. If they are loyal, honest, respectful, considerate, thoughtful, kind,
Yeah.
loving and stuff like that. Like, because your character is gonna make up who you really are as a person ultimately. Because it doesn't
Mhm.
matter what you have, if you don't have the right character to be able to keep it, and to manage
Mhm.
it. And I feel like this goes into the detriment of the families when it comes to the divided families, the split families, because now I'm gonna speak from the man's point of view. As a man, you're not knowing how to actually lead your family. You don't even know how to lead yourself.
Mm.
So now when it comes to you trying to have a family and build a family, you don't know the importance of you being honest with your companion, with your mate, how to be devoted and committed to them when it comes to the way that you're moving as a person. That I'm not going to move that way because why? That's going to embarrass the person that I'm with. And I respect the person that I'm with. I'm going to
Mm.
manage myself first. I'm going to lead myself. I'm going to be very conscious and aware of how I think and what I put into my mind, the people who I hang around. I might be trying to get certain attributes from a person as in to build my character to be more assertive, to be, to not operate on a level of mediocrity. I need to be less like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like procrastinating. So I want to
Yeah.
be around somebody who doesn't procrastinate, but they build and they a go getter and they execute. But that same person can have other characteristics that I don't want. You know what I mean? And I don't want to attach
Right.
to myself. So I need to be very mindful of the people who I'm around, the music I listen to, the books I read, the shows I watch, because I
Right.
don't think that people realize that all these things affect how you think when it comes to
Hmm.
how you are with people and what you value when you start valuing things over people.
Right. And everything does come full circle, and your character eventually does show itself. You know, your true character eventually does come out and show it, come to light. So, to be genuine and honest from the start, I know for some that's a difficult thing to do. But, you and I'm glad you also brought up about traumas don't necessarily stem from just childhood. Traumas can be any, traumatic or any experience that has affected you, and in your life. It could have happened in adulthood that either hinders you from moving forward in whatever it is that's, whether it's relationship, home life, work life. It can be anything. But I'm glad that you pointed that out, because it's not necessarily just childhood traumas that can affect someone. It can be any of these experiences. And you mentioning, someone's character, and being mindful of who you entrust in your circle, or who you even bring in your circle, that all ties into
Right.
that as well. You know,
Right.
that actually ties into your past experiences, and what has led you to form the friendships or the relationships you have now. Just take a look around who those people are in your life, and ask yourself, is this, are these bonds, or are these relationships formed because of these experiences in my past, whether good or bad? It doesn't necessarily all have
Right.
to be bad. Because of that. And that saying, birds of a feather flock together. I mean, it's true.
Yes.
It is very true. And yes, we should, and we should be mindful of that. And these are conversations we should be having, especially if we have children. These are conversations that we should be, trying to have with them, because this sets the tone. And especially when they're making decisions like this, and choosing people in their life, and building their relationships, as they grow up in adulthood.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like, it's so hard because as adults, you know, what have you attached yourself to that you wasn't attached to when you was younger, when you was growing up? Even if you was in a relationship, you said you was married for what, 13 years?
About 14 years. We were together like 18 years.
Right. So your mindset, right, going into that relation, how young were you when you got married?
I was 22.
22.
22.
And how long, like, so before 22, how long were y'all together before that?
Mm. So I want to say I was 17. So when we started,
S- So 5
I was
years.
17. Mm-hmm.
So y'all was together for 5 years before y'all got married at 17 to 22, and then y'all stayed together for 14 years after that. Well, 14
Mm-hmm.
years altogether. Or no,
Yeah.
14 years married.
14 years married.
Right.
14 years
Okay,
married.
so think about the person and the woman you was going into that marriage versus
Hmm.
leaving that same marriage, you know. And what I'm saying is that how a person thinks about life, right? The happiness, the joy, the peace, the fairy tale, what you thought, probably could happen and so forth, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
like life happens. So these things can change you,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're not mindful, I feel like in today's time, a lot of men and women be bashing one another. Like it's the
Mm-hmm.
woman's fault how life is right now. Women ain't this, women ain't that, and then the woman, oh, guys ain't this, guys ain't that. But man, when I tell you about how powerful it is to have certain people with a certain mindset around you, because if you're not careful, say that you are a good woman and you're looking for a good guy. If you already have in your mind that that guy doesn't exist, then how are you going to find the guy that you're looking for, and how are you going to connect with him? If you have the mindset that he doesn't exist. And the same thing for a
Mm-hmm.
man who's looking for a woman. Oh man, women all playing games, and talk about loyal. There's a song that's called "These Hoes Ain't Loyal,"
Mm-hmm.
you
Right.
know, and those two don't even connect because you wouldn't expect the hoe to be
Mm-hmm.
loyal in the first place. So it's like, what type of person are you looking for? Are you looking for a woman? Or are you looking for a hoe? You know,
Yeah.
so a man has to be mindful too when he starts talking about women are only looking for guys that has status, has money, has whatever, whatever. That is true that women do look at men like that, but that's not true
Mhm.
for every woman. you know
Right.
and even if there are women out there that's looking for things like that, then guess what, that's not your type of woman, so you ain't even going for her, so she's irrelevant to what you have going on
Yeah.
because you wouldn't even consider her. So it's like, why are you worried about a woman who you wouldn't date and talk to, but you're
To
complaining?
be long term. Yeah.
Right, because now as a man, you start to look weak as a man because you are a man and complaining about what women is and is not doing. Find a woman that's for you. As a woman, find a man that's for you. Don't worry about the
Right.
guys out here moving certain type of ways because now you're putting into your psyche that what you're looking for don't exist. So now you're not even going to operate as an individual to that standard
Mm-hmm.
because you don't feel like that standard is even out there
Yeah.
you
Right.
know so,
Right.
and that's why I feel like it also goes back into your circle of friends, the people you're around, the people who you speak to, because then it's going to be like everyone around you is having the same conversation. Oh, this person ain't this. Oh, women ain't this. Whatever, whatever. And no one is having really constructive, conversations about how to build our mindsets and heal from, if it's traumas, whatever it may be, and
Yeah.
calling each other out to where we're grabbing each other by the coattail and saying, hey, man, you talking
Mm-hmm.
about certain things that you are not really living,
Yeah.
and that ain't the standard. So if we
Right.
don't have those type of friend groups to where we can actually build, I feel like that's what we should be actually connecting to and looking for is
Mm-hmm.
people who we can actually build with and people who's going to hold us accountable.
Yeah. And I agree. And if you are, constantly running in a circle or have a group of friends that are not holding each other accountable, or they're not, you know, uplifting one another, encouraging one another, you'll find yourself going in a circle. Like it's going to go round and round in a circle. It's going to be the same thing, how you just said, the same conversations they're having. Nothing's going to change from that. I had to actually, I mean, I didn't realize that until even well after my divorce. Like I didn't realize, the importance of that, the importance of the company you keep. I really feel like now I don't regret, anything as far as, my marriage. I don't regret anything. It wasn't like, this terrible marriage or anything like that. However, looking back, you're talking about circle of friends, or who you keep in your circle. Had I really thought about, where this could lead me in my future, I probably would not have been in that situation. I'm sure
Oh,
there's a lot of people that can say the same, looking back. Now we can't go back and obviously undo, what's happened in the past. However, as long as we're able to recognize, and when you're able to recognize it and go forward, because like I said, I'm still learning myself. I'm still trying to identify, how certain things in my past have, affected my relationships, where I'm now just starting to see, where my accountability lie, or with my, not only my ex-husband, but friendships in my family, all of that. And I'm trying to navigate through that, me personally, right now. So going back to when you asked me about if I'm single and ready to mingle, this is the reason why I'm not. Because I
Yeah.
want to be able to, I never wanted to go into marriage. No one ever wants to go into a marriage and says, you know what, I think this is going to fail in about, however many,
Yeah.
14 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't want a repeat. And I had to step back and say,
Mm.
you know what is it that I need to do for myself, about myself, before I can pour myself into somebody else? And I think it's really important, and everything just ties together. These are life choices. All of
Yeah.
these things are just life choices, and yeah, it sucks. Sometimes you get dealt, excuse my language, a shitty hand in life.
Hmm.
But it really, and I know this sounds so cliche, but it really does matter. It's about how you deal with that. What are you going to do with that hand? And
Absolutely.
you know it doesn't have to be this woe is me road for the rest of your life.
Right.
And there is, and how you also said about perception, how people think that you have to have certain things by a certain time, a certain age, and you have to have this, and you have to look this way, and whatever and whatnot. you know what matters is that what you want to do, and what you want to do about it right now. And
Right.
what steps you're going to do to make that happen for you. Now I understand there's just some things that the doors might be shut. We'll find the positive, and from whatever that situation is. And what else can you pull out of that? So, I know a lot of this is, pretty deep for some people, especially when we talk about traumas, or, things in our childhood or things in our past. But when you look at the bigger picture, everything that we do in our life, or anything that we do, whether school, work, choosing a career, choosing your partner, choosing your friends, anything we do, all
Hmm.
ties back to that.
It
And it's
does.
so important.
Progress, not perfection. So you
Yeah.
gotta you gotta build, brick by brick. Um, there's a lot of things that you said there, and I think that is so like important because to some people it is deep, right? And that's what I say to people, that life is serious, right? So it should be deep because it should be thought provoking. It should wake you up to start
Yeah.
to realize that you cannot live life like it's a game.
Hmm.
Like things don't affect things. There's a cause and effect,
Yep.
and you have a thing called being proactive versus reactive, you know.
Right.
So, and also what you mentioned about no one thinking that the marriage is going to fail, and you trying to best prepare yourself so that this won't happen again, and that you can basically know, why did I choose this person? I'm choosing this person from a place
Hmm.
of what I value this about them, this
Yeah.
quality. This person puts family first. They will be loyal, they will be committed. They have what you're looking for. Because some people like myself, who is single with no children, never been married, there's a level of fear to not want to attach myself to someone without
Hmm.
being certain. That's why to me it's very serious. I don't take it as a game at all. It's
Yeah.
because I know outside of myself, as an adult, as a human, as a man, if when you bring other people involved into it, which would be children, how this also, if it didn't work, how it can affect them. So first, I want to make sure, because when I say fear is because I don't want a divided household. You know what I mean? Like you said, life happens, right?
Hmm.
But for me, I haven't started a family yet. I haven't had children yet. So it's like I have to be very conscious of the person who I choose to, say, hey, this is going to be my forever thing.
Right.
But if it's going to be your forever thing of marriage, then why rush a forever thing? Let me make sure that, one, I'm right, because I could have been the problem, and in
Yeah.
what areas were, are the problem in, to where now moving forward, when I do find someone, is okay, I can be the person that I need to be, you
Hmm.
know,
Mhm.
for the person and for myself without changing outside of compromising because you have to coexist with this person. But it's like you're not changing your character so you can be what this person wants you to be because ultimately, again, that doesn't work,
Right.
you know.
Nope,
So
it doesn't. But, there are a lot of relationships out there that work, and there are a lot of relationships out there that, have gone through some major hurdles, and still overcome, and are stronger than ever. So the bright side to all of this is, you know
that's right.
it, there it's not impossible. And people that have, experiences that have shaped or formed, who they are now, doesn't necessarily mean that these are bad people, that they're not
Right.
necessarily, terrible people. But at the same time, as with anything else you do in life, you have to be mindful of who you're going to allow in your life, in your circle, because you also come with, you might come with some type some traumas that haven't been fully dealt with, or some healing that needs to be done, or you might come with certain attachment styles that might not, are not able to coexist with another attachment style. So these are things that, you have to be aware of,
Right.
especially as you're getting older, and making these decisions. Because, like you said, these are lifelong decisions.
Right.
Especially how you mentioned picking a mate. No one, like I said, no one picks somebody and says, you know what, I'm going to have you for like 10 years. Or
Yeah, then
maybe there are
it's
some
over.
people like that. Like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm the short term gal. I'm the short term guy. I don't know. There probably are some.
Yeah.
God bless you. But
Yeah.
but you again, everything comes with a choice. You have to make a decision, and if it's for you, and you want the best, just like you
Right.
would want that, for your children, or those that you love. So
Right.
yeah, I agree.
So when you say you want the best, it's like, what does that look like? So,
Mm-hmm.
and if you want the best, you have to be the best.
Yeah.
So make sure when you're looking for something that you are that. I'm so big on that. Make sure that you are what you're looking for in return, not the whole yin and a yang thing. When it comes to opposites attract. But I'm talking about if you want a person to live from a certain level of principle, standard, morals, values. Make sure you have those principles for yourself. You know what
Right.
I
I
mean?
agree.
As
I
well.
agree.
Yeah, because when you say you want this type of person, you have to ask yourself, because I'm really big on questions. So you have to ask yourself, if I want this type of person, what would this type of person want from me?
Mm,
Because you have your list of things that you want. I want the person to be this, that, and the other. Well, what do they want from you? You have to
yeah.
make sure that you are that. So this has been a great conversation. You
Yeah, it
know,
has.
anybody who has watched this show, they was like, they only watched it because they see you on her. They're like, oh, it's a beautiful woman on her. What's her
Ah,
name, Leslie? You probably got a whole lot of followers after this, show.
that's
They done
funny.
got your handle. They like, oh. So anyway,
You are
I am
funny.
so grateful. I'm so grateful for you coming on to the show, having this
I am
conversation.
too. I feel like this was also a little therapeutic, you know? So,
Absolutely. That's what it's supposed to be.
yeah,
It's supposed to be a welcoming environment for people to be able to come in, listen to some authentic, not fabricated, talks. It'd be a little hyperbole, like when I mentioned about I've been drinking. It's like it's been a hour and almost 30 minutes, right, of this live, and I've been drinking.
yeah.
I'm telling you, I was telling you, it's a gallon, you
That,
know, of water. So it's a little hyperbole
right,
there. You know what I mean?
right.
But I ain't seen you
Yeah,
pick your bottle up at the beginning of the actual
here we
show. So
go.
I want to call you out about your H2O. But yeah,
Yeah,
this show supposed to be very welcoming to people. People can come in and get some, real conversations, real talk. No one who's trying to
yeah,
act like and be like they have it all together. It's just
right.
authentic, raw, conversation. I want people to
Yeah,
have
and
a
I
go ahead.
love that. I didn't mean to cut you off, love. I love that. I love that you do this.
Yeah, don't do
I
it
love
again.
that you have this platform because, again, like you just said, these are just authentic conversations. We are not, obviously we're not like therapists and counselors or anything like that, but we're sharing experiences,
Right.
even opinions, or everyone's entitled to, what they believe, what they think. But hopefully with these conversations that you have on this platform, you're engaging with someone, and you're helping somebody out. So I think that's great, and I thank you for letting me be on here with you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for thanking me. I want to thank you as well because
Mm,
not me, but we are helping people.
mm,
Um, so you coming onto this platform, help me out and also allow people to see, that people are authentic, people are willing to have these, conversations and so forth. So I look
yeah,
forward to doing more shows with you in the future. I'm very grateful.
I'm
Everybody
ready. I'm
again,
ready.
everybody again, this is the lovely, beautiful Leslie Ann out of the Chi Town. You
Chi-town
know,
represents. Yes.
no, y'all don't be mad at her because she's a Chicago Bears fan.
Oh my
Don't
goodness. Don't get me
don't get
started.
on don't get on to her too hard.
Oh gosh, I am a big football fan, so don't you start with me now. Don't you do
Well, I
it.
can't talk noise. I'm a Cowboys fan, and we've been having problems for a long time over there. So anyway, I'm finna end this out the best way I can, y'all. I'm up here quarterbacking this thing, trying to figure out how to do all the effects and everything like that. So before we go, Miss Leslie Ann,
Yes.
we gotta jam out.
Okay,
Okay.
let's do
On the
it. I'm doing
outro.
it one-handed because I had to hold, you know.
Oh, okay, okay,
That's
okay,
okay.
okay. Let's jam out. Let's jam out. Let's jam out. Oh, and uh, for the people, me and Leslie Ann, we gonna think about this. We're gonna have the jam out, but to try to do some grown and sexy nights, when we
Yes.
gonna come in, allow people to come in, have Q&As, have conversations where y'all can come in, ask us some questions, and we can have some grown people talk. And not
Yeah.
just all the relationship or serious talks. It's just more of, how
Right.
people are living in their day-to-day life.
Yeah, we want to hear from everyone. We definitely want to get some feedback. We want to hear what, your stories are, get your, questions answered. So it's this is going to be fun, guys. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Let us know what you think about the broadcast tonight. Anything you want to say, hit us up in our inbox. I said us, so hit her up too. And till next time,
All right.
remember that it's progress, not perfection. You rest in the end, not the middle.
Hey. Bye everyone.
Ooh.
Here it is.
Yes, it's the vibe. It's the vibe.
There you go.
I can drop my light down a little bit lower.
I know. You have the sexy lights. You're ready for grown and sexy talk. Okay. Sorry, y'all. I can't do the same.
Yeah. Let me give y'all something before I go. Y'all know I was a singer and a rapper.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Here we
Lord.
go. No, I'm just playing.